The Daytona Duels are in the books, which means there's only one thing left, and that is the Daytona 500 coming up this Sunday. Welcome, everybody. I'm John Breeden. Thank you very much for tuning in to my duel recap show. And we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, the duels took place tonight. Joey Logano won Duel 1. Eric Almirola won Duel 2. I thought Duel 1 was not very exciting up until the last lap. I thought Duel 2 had that, that normal Daytona duel excitement that we see. And I thought it was a lot better of a race in Duel 2. So a lot of stories coming out of the duels. And obviously, I think the biggest one is Kyle Busch. So Kyle Busch, in case you missed it, Kyle Busch was leading with 20 laps to go. And off the bumper, Daniel Suarez got turned virtually head on into the outside wall on the backstretch, and seemingly had a very strong car for Daytona. And I mean, honestly, up until that happened, I was thinking I was going to be picking Kyle Busch to win the Daytona 500, just looking at how strong he was, and just knowing that he's really winning this year with a lot of confidence in the Richard Childress car. Moving teams this year after I think 15 seasons with Joe Gibbs Racing, and coming off arguably probably the worst year of his career. He was certainly looking to get on the right foot with Richard Childress, but unfortunately, he's looks to be going to a backup car. In case you missed it, I'm actually going to show the video here.
Does he get that car going? Riley Herbst involved. There's the push, and there's the turn.
There's a lot of contact going on there. Daniel Suarez was getting really aggressive. I'm not so sure why he was pushing so aggressively there at that point. Like I said, there was 20 laps to go, and Suarez was really pushing on Kyle's back bumper and got him turned around. One big thing I was thinking about in the second duel was just how loose the cars are in the draft. That's something that, I feel like you always see a little bit. The cars are, when they're bumping each other or when they're beating and banging, they get loose. But I don't know. They looked more loose than you normally see here. And I was thinking, like, man, if they keep pushing like this, somebody's going to wreck. And once Suarez started doing that, once he started pushing on Kyle like that, I thought, man, it's only a matter of time. And then sure enough, he got turned right into the wall. But man, I know not a lot of people like Kyle Busch, but man, you got to feel for him at this point. I mean, Kyle Busch, like I said, probably coming off the worst year of his career last year at Joe Gibbs Racing, just had a terrible year. Moved to Richard Childress this year, looking for, sort of looking to rejuvenate his career a little bit. And, already, first of all, during the offseason, he had the incident go on in Mexico, which I think has already been touched on enough. There's no point in touching on that, but he was dealing with that. And, he goes to the Clash, and granted, he finishes third, but he ended up getting into a sort of a spat with Joey Logano, which is something, I mean, I don't know if you ever want to get in a spat with other drivers. Granted, he did finish third, but man, me sitting here thinking he was going to be, a top contender for the Daytona 500, and then gets wrecked out of the lead in the duel. And if you saw his interview on Fox, I mean, he just looked distraught, absolutely distraught from what happened. So Kyle's going to go to a backup car. I guess the good thing for Kyle is, for some reason this year at Daytona, there hasn't been any practice yet. There's only going to be 2 practice sessions before the Daytona 500. I mean, remember Speed Weeks when we used to have like 7 practice sessions, and now we have 2 practice sessions. Don't understand why, but regardless, I guess perhaps a positive for Kyle is, the only track time anybody has gotten is qualifying, and then obviously the duel. Kyle's still going to be at a disadvantage because of everybody out there who were, got to, sort of figure out the balance of their car and sort of see what the draft is like. But for Kyle, now he's going to be starting from square one with a backup car. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, unfortunate for Kyle Busch, not the way he wanted to start at Joe Gibbs Racing. That wreck also, excuse me, did I say Joe Gibbs Racing? Richard Childress Racing, pardon me. That wreck also included Travis Pastrana. It included Riley Herbst and Austin Hill, who actually, that wreck ended up knocking him out of the Daytona 500. We can talk about that in a little bit. Right now at this point, looking at Bob Pockrass on Twitter, he said about an hour ago, at the time of this recording, it's 11:30 on Thursday, but about an hour ago, Bob Pockrass tweeted, RCR still assessing, but most likely will go to a backup car for Kyle Busch. So not confirmed yet that he's going to go to a backup car. Pastrana, the Pastrana team will repair his car. So Pastrana is not going to have to go to the back for the Daytona 500. So that's the story there. So that's pretty much the big story. As I mentioned in the beginning, Joey Logano won the first duel. Eric Almirola won the second duel. I'll briefly sort of give you my thoughts on the first duel. So duel one, we saw some pack racing early on in the early laps, what we usually see at Daytona. And then things got strung out single file. Ryan Blaney led some laps, but once Joey Logano got out front, that was pretty much it. Nobody was able to really touch Joey Logano. The front car short pitted and gapped the other group. If you watch, there was really a group. The front group had a lot of the Fords in the front group, had Bubba Wallace as well. And then the second pack was a lot of the Chevrolets, guys like Austin Dillon, Eric Jones were in that second pack that, unfortunately for them, lost the front pack after pit stops and how everything shook out there. So, I mean, it was pretty much single file up until the very last lap. Guys started to make their moves. Ryan Blaney tried to make a move for the lead. Christopher Bell tried to make a move for the lead. It was actually a photo finish. I mean, it was a good finish. Christopher Bell got a run going into turn 3, went to the outside, and it was a photo finish at the line. But basically, Bell was getting a run on Joey. He moved to the outside. Blaney, who is, of course, Joey's teammate, lined up in third. So he went with his teammate, of course, and helped Joey win. So Joey Logano wins duel 1, and he will start third for the Daytona 500. If I can get results here. Of course, I mean, Joey Logano won the race. He started third. Christopher Bell finished second in the duel, so he'll start fifth. Then you have Ryan Blaney, who's going to start seventh. Chris Buescher, who's going to start ninth. So there's that. So, yeah, like I said, not much going on in duel 1. Pretty much just single file racing. I felt like I was watching practice, honestly, at times. But it seems to be that first duel is just always so lackluster. And then the second duel is when things really pick up, and it certainly did. Zane Smith, of course, raced his way in the first duel. Jimmy Johnson was already in on speed. Zane Smith finished ninth in his duel, I believe. So he was up there in that front pack. I would tell you this. I don't know if Zane Smith's going to win the Daytona 500, but I will tell you, from somebody who did win the truck race at Daytona last year and who looked fairly strong in the duel as well. He's in a Ford. The Fords are very fast. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if you see a surprise top 10 on the 500 in Zane Smith. I mean, he looked very strong in the duel, like I said. And so that wouldn't surprise me if he could pull off a top 10 finish in the Daytona 500 in what would be his first Cup Series race. Of course, not qualifying was Chandler Smith, unfortunately for him. So back to duel 2, Connor Daly, as I mentioned, had problems at the beginning. Something with the rear of the car was just not right. Fox wasn't really able to diagnose what the problem was. I don't think Connor Daly was able to, but you saw the car kind of jopping up and down as he was getting out there. And I thought, man, he's not even going to make a lap. He's not even going to make a lap. And if you watch the race, I mean, the pack just leaves him. The pack just absolutely leaves him. I mean, they left him back in like Lake Lloyd. I mean, he wasn't even close. So I thought, well, he's out. And then, of course, as I mentioned, with 20 laps to go, Kyle Busch leading the race, got turned off the bumper of Daniel Suarez. If you listen to Daniel Suarez's interview, he said, he was kind of getting an aggressive push from the 5 of Kyle Larson, who was right behind him, and things just didn't go right. And so Kyle got turned, and Austin Hill was involved in this wreck. So he ended up, the whole rear suspension of the car was messed up. and he had to go behind the wall. So, and of course, Travis Pastrana was in the wreck as well. So both of them were out. Pastrana was already in on speed. It was a shoe-in for Connor Daly, so he was able to get into the Daytona 500 for Floyd Mayweather's team, Team Money. I did forget to mention, so Kyle Busch's wreck. If you watch the slow motion, which I tried to pull it up on YouTube, but I couldn't find, they haven't posted it yet at this point. If you watch the slow motion, Kyle hits the wall and you see his head go forward. I mean, really hard. And obviously, a big story last year was the safety of these cars. And NASCAR has modified the back of the car to where it will crunch more on impact, which obviously, releases a lot of the energy, expends it a lot to where, when, a car takes a hit, it's not as much on the driver, the car takes the brunt of the hit, right? Because that was the problem with the cars last year. Cars were virtually indestructible. You hit them off the wall, and I mean, you can keep going. I mean, look at Travis Pastrana. He's gotten that wreck tonight, and he's going to be able to repair the car and get back going. The problem with that is again, the hits are on the drivers. And when I saw that, and when I saw Kyle Busch's front end barely bend, I mean, all I can think is these cars are not safe yet. They are not where they could be. I don't want to say they're completely unsafe, but they are not where they should be. Now, I understand why they modified the rear of the car, because if you remember last year, Kurt Busch, his career-ending injury, at least full-time career-ending injury, came from a hit to the back, right, at Pocono. Alex Bowman, when he got his concussion, it was a hit to the back of the car. I think Kevin Harvick was complaining that he may have had like some neck stiffness, or it was one of the hardest hits he's taken. He felt some soreness after he took a hit to the back at Texas, the same place. But the thing of it is, these head-on, these front-end collisions are very bad as well. And NASCAR needs to do something about these cars, because they are not bending on impact. They're not breaking on impact like they should be. And that's going to be a problem. Now, Kyle Busch has not commented at this point on the hit. I mean, he was okay, seemingly, but he hasn't commented on that at this point. I don't know if we'll get a comment on that or what, but these front end hits are bad, and it shakes the driver around in the car a lot. I mean, you go back to that Daytona race last year, the August or September race, whenever it was, the last race to make the chase playoffs. Excuse me. I'm an old head. I say chase, but they had that big wreck when it started raining, and Daniel Suarez went down on the apron in turn 1 and 2, and then came right back up the track, head onto the wall. It was basically the same wreck that killed Dale Earnhardt. Looked exactly like it. And if you watch his onboard camera, go find it on YouTube or something. It's violent the way he shakes around in that car. It's really bad. So they need to do something about these cars. I can't stress it enough. I know people are going to give me 80,000 reasons on why they can't change it or why they can't do this or that. They can do something. If they could fix the back end of the car, they can fix the front end of the car to where it breaks on impact. So anyway, that's my thoughts there. So also, the first caution, by the way, the first caution of the race in Duel 2 was for Justin Haley's side window falling off. That was bizarre. I mean, it goes to show just the air in those, tight packs, just blew that window right out. So, I mean, I don't know if he had it improperly secured, it wasn't tight or what, but blew the side window right out of it. So Daniel Suarez had the lead at that point, but then came into pit road and missed the stall. So he lost a bunch of time and ultimately cost him a shot at the dual win. So they went back green. Kyle Larson led for a little bit. Austin Cindric got up there, led for a little bit. Coming out of the final laps, Todd Gilliland looked really strong in those last couple of laps. He got up there. He was leading and, had a shot at a win, but wasn't able to hold off Eric Almirola. Eric got a run on him, come to the white flag, and got ahead of him. But Todd Gilliland had an amazing save case you didn't see it.
Two Fords on the outside, Ford Chevy on the bottom, and Gilliland got loose after a bump from Narson.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looked like Kyle Busch's Budweiser shootout save back in 2012. So it was a great save there for Todd Gilliland. And of course, Eric Almirola won the race. Coming basically, well, he said he was going to retire and then he decided to unretire for this season. Eric Almirola gets a dual tune win. So Eric Almirola will start fourth for the Daytona 500. And here is, let me see. So yeah, so Eric Almirola will start fourth. Austin Cindric finished second, so he will start sixth. Chase Elliott finished third. He'll start eighth. Chase Elliott partnered up now with Coca-Cola. I thought that was interesting. Didn't see that one coming, considering that he was with Mountain Dew, and of course Jeff Gordon is the vice chairman of Hendrick now. Never thought I'd see Jeff Gordon sort of partner up with Coca-Cola after he was with Pepsi for so many years. And then Brad Keselowski finished fourth, so he will be starting 10th for the Daytona 500. So, yeah, so as mentioned, Connor Daly made it into the Daytona 500, and the two did not qualify, Austin Hill and Chandler Smith. It was really cool to see how happy Connor Daly was after making the Daytona 500. His mom was there. It was pretty cool moment to see, but unfortunate for Austin Hill and Chandler Smith. But hey, I mean, I know people are sad that Austin Hill didn't make it, but Austin Hill, he's got a bright future ahead of him. I mean, he's in the Xfinity Series right now for Richard Childress Racing, and I'm sure Austin Hill is going to have another chance in the Daytona 500. Before I get to my pick, I mean, my thoughts on what we're going to see Sunday. Like I said, these cars are really loose, and granted, they hadn't been out in the draft yet. Maybe once they get to practice, they can tighten the cars up, and perhaps make them tighter. I don't know, but the cars are really loose right now, which is probably not going to bode well for Sunday. I have a feeling you're probably going to see a big wreck or two or three, or more. I mean, we've seen some Daytona races that have just been absolute wreck fests. I hope it's not like that. I mean, I don't mind to see a big wreck or two, but when it becomes just an absolute wreck fest and everybody's just smashing into everybody, I mean, it just becomes long and drawn out, and I mean, I want to see racing. I don't necessarily want to see crashing, but I also don't want to see them right around in a single file line either. So my prediction for the race, like I said, I was initially, when I was sitting there watching the duels, I was thinking Kyle Busch looks strong. I'm thinking I'm going to pick Kyle Busch, but I mean, since what happened, I don't know. I just don't know at this point. I mean, now he's going to a backup car. We'll see what happens with him. Maybe this will age well or not. That now I'm not going to pick Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch could end up winning the Daytona 500. Who knows? But honestly, in the Daytona 500, it's hard to really pick somebody. Because of the chaos that are super speedways and things like that. The chaos we've seen over the last couple of years with this aero package and just all the craziness that happens there. But which is why I'm going to go a little outside the box for this one. And I don't feel like it's too far outside the box, but based on what happened last year and based on things like that, I feel like it is a bit of an out of the box pick. But my pick to win the 2023 Daytona 500 to kick off the 75th year of NASCAR, I'm going with Brad Keselowski. I think Brad Keselowski is a great plate racer. He's won at Daytona before. He's won at Talladega 6 times. He knows when to be in position to win these plate races. He knows how to manage the pack when it gets out front. He knows how to block. He knows how to work the draft. So I think if Brad Keselowski can avoid the chaos and be up there towards the end, there's not too many people that are better, quite honestly. I mean, when you look at plate racers, I mean, obviously Denny Hamlin is very good. Chase Elliott's very good. Ryan Blaney's very good. But Brad Keselowski, you certainly have to throw his name in there. Bubba Wallace is very good as well. but I think it's going to be Brad Keselowski. I think Brad Keselowski is going to end the dry spell. His last win was 2021 at Talladega, of all places, when he was with Team Penske. It would be his first win with his new co-owned team. I guess not new, but now it's their second season, RFK Racing. You know, RFK really started to come into its own towards those last couple of races last year. I feel like they were starting to sort of find a groove. You know, Chris Buescher won the race at Dover, or at Bristol, excuse me. He won at Bristol. Brad Keselowski started to run pretty solid towards the end. He had a good run. He had a good run going at Bristol. He had a good run at Martinsville, a couple other tracks. So Brad Keselowski, I think, finally gets that Daytona 500 win, the 2012 Cup champion. And I think, who knows, it may spark the rise of RFK Racing in 2023. So that is my pick. I believe Brad Keselowski will win the 2023 Daytona 500. So Friday night is the truck race, and there are a few notable entries for this race. Corey LaJoie will be driving the 7 truck, so he is in the field, as well as Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's going to be behind the wheel of the 35 truck, so going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. The truck race is always usually pretty insane at Daytona, so you can count on a good show there. And then the Xfinity Series race Saturday evening, 5 o'clock. And looking at the entry list, seemingly no notable Cup guys are going to be behind the wheel. So it looks like it's the Xfinity Series regulars. So there you go. And then, of course, the Daytona 500 on Sunday. So that is my dual recap and my Daytona 500 prediction. And I will be back on Sunday to recap all the action from the Daytona 500. And so that is all for me. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at NASCAR Images and subscribe to the channel. And so that's it, everybody. You have just watched NASCAR Images on YouTube.